Welcome, everybody, to the Destination Recreation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Dennis. And with me today is somebody, it's been a long time since I talked to her. We go back a really long time, I guess 20 years knowing each other, um, back from the University of Maryland. Um, sorry about that. Tricia has been a director of University Recreation at UT Dallas for over 18 years. She oversees 3 facilities and a staff of 10 full-time staff members. In addition, she has been tasked to help with student council cases and serves on the Title IX hearing panel. Prior to UT Dallas, Tricia received her master's from the University of Southern Mississippi. After graduating from there, she spent 7.5 years at the University of Maryland College Park, where I met her. So please welcome to the show, Tricia Losavio.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Sean. So if we go back, I was here 18 years to 25 years ago, I guess is probably once we crossed paths for the first time. So that's a
And
long time.
right, and at that point, I was still I was on the border of a student employee before getting hired on, because
Yeah.
was hired on February or interviewed February 1998, first started April 1998.
Yeah. So I started at the University of Maryland July of 97. So the year later is when we got, so yeah, so 25 years ago. So there you go. Don't we look like babies? I know you can't see us, but we look like babies.
Yeah. Um, Sometimes I wish. I don't feel that way some mornings when I get up. Um, uh, I guess I also want to start up to you by thank you for your prior military service as well.
Aw, thank you.
So was that when did that fall for you? When was your military service?
So when I graduated from high school, I was looking for an opportunity to go to college, and Louisiana offered the GI Bill through the National Guard. So I joined the National Guard straight out of high school. In fact, I was 17. My mom had to sign the papers because I didn't turn 18 until November. So I graduated high school at 17, left to go to boot camp that summer, and then turned 18 while I was in boot camp. And then when I got back was when the Gulf War started. And so I was deployed for 6 months overseas with my unit. I was a truck driver, or 88 Mike. And so I spent 6 months overseas, doing all sorts of things with my truck, hauling different things, food, supplies, refugees, you name it. If it fit in the back of my truck, we hauled it. And then came back, went to college, still had to fulfill my guard duty obligations. So I was in the National Guard for 6 years. And I moved to Maryland, and I decided that's when I did not re up, was when I moved to Maryland. But the focus was to go to college.
And with that, what was your intent in your undergrad? Originally what were you trying to pursue as an undergrad? What was the thought?
I really didn't know 100% of what I wanted to do. I went to a very small high school, and there wasn't like a career counselor or academic counselor, somebody, like college day or college career day or anything like that. And so it was kind of just listening to other friends, or reading books and things like that to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And originally I wanted to be, um, you just watch TV and you're like, oh, I want to be a team doctor. That sounds great. Well, you don't realize that to be a team doctor, you have to be a doctor. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be a doctor. So then I thought about athletic training, and I took a few classes, and then I started working at my undergrad at the University of Louisiana Monroe. I started working in the intramural department. It was my work study job. And I started out as an official and was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I love this. And then I worked my way up as a supervisor and got more exposure and more responsibility, and just realized that you could do this full time. And then that's when I applied and received the graduate assistantship at Southern Mississippi. And then it's taken its own. I think and then I ended up graduating with a degree in, I think they called it health and human performance back then. So and then my master's was in sports administration.
Okay.
So one of the few people whose degree is actually what they're doing.
I can tell you that that's not the case for me. Um,
Exactly.
I mean, but it's benefited me. But so, did you find it hard navigating through positions being a woman in recreation?
So I don't I don't know if it was hard, and because if any, I know there's people that are going to listen to this podcast that don't know me, but for those of you who know me, I'm not a shy person, but I'm not disrespectful at the same time. So I know, and being in the military teaches you that too. You follow the chain of command, you do what you're told, and then if you don't like something or if you have an opinion, go through your chain of command to try to fix it. So that's kind of how I approach things. If there was a job that I wanted or an opportunity that I wanted and I didn't get it, it was like, why? What was it, because I was a female, or was it because I didn't have the experience? Was it because of I just interviewed poorly or whatever it was? I think that coming up and working at Southern Mississippi, which was very female supportive, and then going and working at the University of Maryland. And I believe, Barb has been mentioned on every podcast you've had so far. Having a strong female role model or somebody that would um, kind of help you navigate things, because I'm sure when she was coming up, it was very difficult. And then it gets easier, what my generation, what my generation went through was a little easier than the previous generation. And, like flag football, you didn't see a lot of female officials when I first started. Well, now they're everywhere. High school basketball, you don't see a lot of high school basketball female officials. Well, now they're in the NBA. So a lot of things have changed for women in general. But for me, myself personally, I don't think I was ever slighted for being a female, only because I was able to command the respect from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. I was just curious because, I mean, I noticed that it been not as long as some other people, but going when I started going to conferences and see like that, it was, um, I guess almost like the good old boys club. It was a lot of the same. The directors have been in there for a while. Male dominant staffs. Like you have certain people here and there with the staff that might be a female. Like there was the stereotype, like the female was like the group fitness person or something like that, and a lot of
It's still like that, Sean. If you there's it's still the it's still if you look at NERSA as a whole, it is white male dominated. We know that. Um, but we are making strides to diversify. And in all actuality, I think if you look at NERSA itself, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I know the last two or three presidents have all been female. So that just shows you that our association embraces female women in leadership roles, whereas if you're in an engineering field, that does not happen. Medical fields typically don't happen, law fields and things like that. So you are correct. It is my staff is predominantly male. So it's not, it's just the way that it happens. There's just not a lot of women out there in our fields anymore. So it's just to keep them interested and to give them the support and the tools that they need to succeed, and get them to where they're comfortable sharing their voice, just like I was comfortable sharing my voice.
because that was one of the things I saw running two different search committees too back at Maryland too for certain positions. One of which was an aquatics position, and it was just like, well, the search committee would present their short list of semifinalists, and you know, be asked a question about diversity and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know. I mean, that's we haven't done video interviews. We only did phone interviews, so I have no idea. That then the demographics are not necessarily an application or that are shared with us, but it was just like we need more diversity. I was like, this is who applied for the position. Like, what do you want us to do? Like, again, try to think about different places to advertise it, so you're reaching as broad audience as possible to get the best pool of candidates as possible. And we could repost a job like 7 times, and I think the average is still going to be similar to, that first pool of candidates. And so it's just like, there's just certain jobs that, that,
There are certain jobs that are going to be male heavy, and there's
right,
certain jobs that are going to be female heavy, and we know that. Like, just we know, like you just said earlier, fitness is probably going to be female heavy. Aquatics is maybe 50-50. Intramurals is going to be male dominant. Club sports is probably male dominant. So there's, outdoor rec is probably male dominant. And you're right. It's hard to find. We need more diversity. We need more diversity in our applicant pool. It's Yeah, we need more diversity, but at the same time, what's out there? Why are women applying for other types of jobs? Why are other minorities applying for other types of jobs? Like what is my? I've learned this. What does my job description portray? So within our job description, do we mention, are our statements welcoming? Are we using male dominated pronouns? Not he or him necessarily, but male dominated action words. I learned that the other day at a conference. So you can even look at to how your job's being posted, which you could have posted that job for the last 10 years every time you had a job opening, and never thought about, okay, how does this read to somebody else? So if I'm a female and I read this and it says, um, um, must be able to lift 50 pounds. Well, okay, I don't know if I can lift 50 pounds, to tell you the truth, which I understand some jobs require a weight limit, to be able to do some physical activity, but there may be a different way of wording that to where it doesn't automatically discriminate people who may not be proud of their bodies, or don't want to, like, put themselves at ooh, do I have to go to this interview and lift 50 pounds? That might be embarrassing if I don't do it. Well, no, you're not going to have to give a demo. It's just to let you know at some point in the job, you may have to pick up a 50-pound weight plate and be able to move it. It's completely different from saying you must be able to lift 50 pounds.
right.
So looking at some of those things could maybe help attract uh, minorities, women, to apply for certain jobs that are typically male dominated by just changing your verbiage in your job descriptions.
I think that was one thing I thought about with supervising the ops staff. I mean, there was a point in time because we had some people getting hurt. We also had people applying for the job I had one gentleman who applied for the job in, operations was a lot of moving stuff, a lot of physical labor. I mean, I had a young man who applied for the job who had a hole in his spine and couldn't lift more than really 8 pounds. I was just like, well, I interviewed him anyway. When we completed the interview, and I was just like, well, probably this is not be the job for me because just the nature of the job, and put him in contact with somebody else. But, it was thinking about that too, because I had an instance where a young lady came in to interview and she read the job description, but she thought it was more just like sitting at the desk and swiping IDs, which is what she wanted to do. I was like, well, this is not that. I mean, you're going to be outside. You could be out running a string trimmer, helping sod, help paint lines outside or inside, work. No, I don't want to do that. So started to think about, those conversations when I interviewed student staff too, about, how, because we were there for a long time. Again, that job was mostly young men coming in to interview for it with different backgrounds, different majors. I had students that worked for me at the broad spectrum of majors, from English majors to the variety of the engineering majors and everything in between. But it's just like, well, how can we get, a percentage of our staff, female, so that it doesn't look like we're all hiring all guys all the time. And it's like, well, first of all, I need young ladies to apply. They're not applying. Like, I can't interview them if they don't apply. So, we found
Yeah.
ways to be inclusive, and like, and be able to, bring them into the job so that they can do the job as like everybody else. So,
Mhm. Yeah. It definitely takes a lot of creativity sometimes, and meeting them where they're at and not expecting them to come to you. How are you going to hire more X, Y, and Z if you're not where X, Y, and Z are located? So if you're still sitting in your office, posting the same job, doing the same interviews, if you post your jobs in the rec center, you're like, well, okay, but there's students that don't work out in our facility that are still qualified to work in our facility. So I learned that too was, broaden where you post jobs, like you said, Bluefish, or, going to an aquatics journal, or other areas, other listservs and things like that. Like talking about an operations staff having to do with a lot of landscaping. My first thought was there an agricultural program or landscape architecture program at Maryland? Well, I would have went try to present there to see if any female are in the class that would like to come and learn and get hands-on experience doing that type of stuff. That's the first place I went to. But 20 years ago, we wouldn't have thought to do that, Sean.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I mean, I've seen this shift over the years too. As like, you know, as gregarious as Jay was, like, the starting to embrace the change. I think one of the most interesting things is there was a time, I forget what was being discussed in the department, but there was a lot of grumbling, and different people around me were complaining about this. And then I said something to Jay one day, just a conversation, him and I. He's just like, you know what? Everybody's got to embrace change. If not, they're just going to have to get out of here, because we're in a shift where we have to learn to change. And again, words I never really ever expected to hear from Jay, because Jay was
You're
always.
right. He was about as old school could get. The traditional white male dominated, Yosemite Sam mustache. Jay, that I say that with love. Um, and for him to think about, 20 something years ago, to understand that change is coming. We can't stay status quo anymore, or we're going to get left in the dust. And if we're like he was or is at Maryland, you're a tier one institution, the flagship of the state. You should be leading the way, and you need to surround yourself with people that can get you there. So even though I'm at UTD and we're not a flagship institution, I still use that same motto with surround yourself with people that can get you where you need to go.
It's a good philosophy, because I mean there was a big shift in our department with like the seeing the different people getting opportunities, interviewing and changing, areas that were male dominated to, all female staffs with female leadership. And so I think it was, and then you see that reflected in their candidate pools, the people coming in and the students interviewing for the jobs, which was great to see. So,
Yeah.
so I guess, what are some of the most things that you're proud of bringing to the program there at UT?
I think one of the things I'm most proud of, there's a long list, don't get me wrong, was I'll go back to the beginning, when I started here in fall of December of '04. And then I was approached by NERSA to host the first NERSA National Flag Football Tournament. And I was like, why us? Why me? I just moved here, blah, blah, blah. And it was because of people like Jacob and a few others that had been here that had a good relationship with NERSA, that said, hey, Tricia and her team will do a good job. And second of all, we had enough fields to do it. So that was the secondary thing. So I think I was very proud of the fact of my peers that recommended me and my staff, as well as us having the facilities to do such a thing. You needed, we had like, you needed so many fields. I can't even remember off the top of my head to host the national tournament, but we had the field space to do that. And then the NERSA, um, came and visited and met with us and saw everything and was like, oh yeah, this would be great. So we were able to host the first 2 years of the NERSA National Flag Football Tournament. So that's something I'll always be proud of. Other things are just the opportunities that we have given to students. We always say that, students understanding the soft skills that they learn by working here. They don't know it at the time, and then you sit down with them and you're like, well, oh, I don't know if I'm qualified for this job. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, you have conflict resolution, you have time management skills, you have communication skills, you have stuff that you've learned on this job that you don't even know that you learned. Um, that's going to add to the fact that you are going into, you're applying for medical school or you're applying for grad school. There's some other things you can add to your other resume other than belonging to student orgs or something like that. So that's something that our department is the second largest student employer on campus behind dining services. So that's something I'm very proud of. And then
how many student employees do you have?
not as many as y'all do at Maryland. I mean, good Lord, y'all employ a small city over there. I found out Flummer said something the other day how many y'all have, but we average around 130, 125, 130, depending upon what sports going on in intramurals, because sometimes you need more officials. The time of the year changes too. Um, Summer we have a little less because students can work 40 hours a week over the summer, so we don't need as many student employees. But I'd say on average somewhere between 125 and 130.
That's still a good number.
Oh, it's a great number, yeah. When you dip down to 80 is when you start going, oh my God, what am I going to do? Talk about creative marketing and recruiting and things like that and meeting students where they are. I mean, yeah, I go back to my roots and they joke because I go sit at the desk to swipe IDs when we're short staffed or if somebody needs a break. And I don't know how to run the cash register. Like, oh, you need a guest pass? Come on in, it's free today. I don't know. They don't let me touch the cash register. It's free today. Oh, you want to go take a group fitness class? That's free too. Just come on in. So I think they try to wait and see when I'm working at the desk to try to come in.
Well, that's a pretty good marketing ploy, though. It's good. Get them hooked a little bit. Come in,
Yeah,
sign up for
yeah.
some classes. So,
So
so now your department, the amount of staff you have, is that many how many staff you had going into that job, or is that how many you've grown the staff to since you've been there?
so we've grown the staff. We had let's see, when I got here, there was about seven of us, including myself. And then I was able to justify adding. So it used to be intramurals and clubs were together, and fitness and aquatics were together. So I was able to justify splitting those up. So I added a club sports coordinator, and then I added an aquatics coordinator. So that was two new positions I was able to add. We also require, or not require, we also have at the time, had one person that worked at night, full time, that worked at night. And as the university grew and our programs and services grew, and just the usage at night is crazy compared to the usage at day. I mean, this place is busting at the seams at night. And so I was able to justify hiring a second person to work at night. And then whenever we opened a satellite facility on the north side of campus, obviously we needed to have somebody run that one. So that was a no brainer. They let me hire somebody to do that. So I think I added five positions, and then I lost one during the pandemic due to the pandemic, just for budget cuts. So I think we're back down, and I have a maintenance worker that I added as well. So I think it's up to 11 or 12 with me.
So how did you guys handle COVID, and how do you think have you guys rebounded to where you were pre-COVID, or is there still a little? Does it seem like there's still a little bit of a lag?
So like everybody else, March, COVID hit, bam, shut down. We'll let you know when to come back. So we were able to, um, once they figured out everything that was going on, we were able to open up. I think like a lot of universities did, we revamped entrances and exits and what equipment could be used and not used and certain hours for this and signing up for that. So, we did all of that and signed whatever. And then when the students, when we came back, when the students came back, they initially were asynchronous. They were on campus one day, virtual the next day to kind of de-densify campus. We, as a full time staff, were still rotating in and out of the office or working on work remote and working in to try to like not have a whole staff get wiped out at the same time due to COVID. Um, and then when we came back, I think then the next time it was we were able to offer faculty and staff memberships this past fall for the first time. We were still kind of a little restricted on our usage, but they were able to lift all restrictions. So faculty and staff were able to buy memberships, or we're back. That's back up and running. We had a conversation earlier today. Clubs are making a comeback. Clubs are always fluid. We know that, but clubs definitely did take a hit during COVID because for 2 years they couldn't travel. So even when our students returned to campus, we still had restrictions on travel, um, practices, meetings, and things like that. Large group activities. So that definitely that put a big damper on club sports. But now that we're back, there's no restrictions. They are up and running. We have a few that we still have them considered as a student org, so they fall under the student union organizations until they're able to get more memberships, a little more stability, a little more longevity in their club life, and then we'll move them over under our umbrella for club sports. Intramurals is back up. I mean, there's people on the typical wait list for things. Our facility usage. The only thing that is down, and it's been down even before COVID, is group fitness, and I think that's a trend everywhere. Is some classes are busting at the seams, and some classes and we've tried everything, different times, different dates, different instructors. We don't even charge for group fitness anymore. Out of COVID, I was like, you know what? Let's reduce a barrier. And there may be students that want to participate in group fitness, but they can't because they don't have the $50 to pay for a group fitness class. So I said, let's just remove that barrier. Mental health is big. So if we can give students an opportunity to take a yoga class, take a fitness class, hit whatever it is, just to get some exercise for their mental health, let's do that. I thought we would have a jump in usage numbers by removing the fee, and it kind of stayed the same. There wasn't really an uptick on anything, to tell you the truth. So I'm still pondering what to do with that. Not that I'm getting rid of group fitness, just trying to ponder, like you said, how do we market and get people to take it, knowing that it's free.
I know we talked about that in Maryland too. It was part of the discussions too, because the whole boon of Peloton and everything like that and virtual programming, and I know it was quite a few conversations about how we can do that at Maryland too. Besides offering the classes we have, but there's some people that couldn't necessarily make those classes, and so could we do a virtual studio for cycling and things like that? Because there was a lot of people that liked doing those activities, but couldn't make the times we offered it. And even with trying to add more times, but it was always about whether or not you had enough instructors to teach the classes as well, and having different spaces spread out across the campus.
Yeah, we had some on demand classes. We would videotape and created a library for some classes. Um, and that still didn't take off as well as I thought. I don't know if it's, this is not production quality. This isn't like the Peloton studio with the lights and everybody's glowing and everything. This was like real rugged group fitness classes being recorded. And some of it just maybe the students didn't have a bike to take a spin class, or they didn't have the weights to do a hit class. So yoga seems to be what was very popular because you really don't need any equipment for that. Pilates, tend to have been successful as well because it's very low maintenance, low equipment needs. You don't need a very large space. You could do it in your room. So
Now, do you guys do a lot of outreach work with like the health center you guys have on campus, or like is there any other wellness services that you guys do, like programming you guys do, like co-programming you guys do?
we University Recreation, or UREC, we're part of the wellness initiatives, or I call it the wellness pod. So student affairs is broken up into to three major areas, and one of our areas is the wellness initiatives. So it's us, the Student Counseling Center, the Student Wellness Center, and the Student Health Center. So we've partnered a lot with the Student Wellness Center. They do a lot of preventative programming, Alcohol Awareness Week, Suicide Prevention Month, Cancer Month. They host different types of fairs, nutritional fairs, and things like fairs, not affairs. Nutrition fairs. They have a dietitian on campus that works out of their office to help with students with any dietary issues or concerns. And so we do a lot of natural partnering with them. And then the Student Counseling Center, we offered, this was when we were charging, so this is pre-pandemic. We gave um, a pass basically that the counselors could give to anybody if they were meeting with a student that was just like in need of some like exercises medicine type program where you write a prescription and you say, hey, go attend 2 yoga classes this week and tell me if you feel better. So since we were charging at the time, they were able to give them a free pass to attend those classes, no questions asked, so that way nothing was no information was divulged as to why this person had a free pass, because they were given out for all sorts of reasons, so nobody would equate it back to the counseling center. So we did that. um, we also do we have some events that we do with the student counseling center that we like a Friday after class activity that we do out on one of our Rose Hall courtyards, where we brought in the student counseling center just so they do a lot of group therapy, that some pause for finals. They bring in dogs to kind of like the stress relief dogs, where you can just sit and pet a dog and get all relaxed. So we partner with those two areas. The student health center is a little harder to partner with because they don't really do a lot of programming. Um, they offer services like flu shots and dental screenings and eye exams and then wellness exams and if you're sick and stuff. So, um, but I'm sure there's something we can come up with at some point that we can partner with them if there's some event.
Is those are any big things on the horizon for the program there? You guys planning any other buildings or expansions or anything?
So surprisingly, like this came out of the blue, and I just learned about this maybe a month ago, right before I left to go to Pittsburgh for NERSA. I was talking to, so I report up through the dean of students, and I was talking to her, and she was saying about how she's like, "Oh, you might get a new building," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "No, don't say anything." But I was in a meeting, you know how it is. I was in a meeting where a meeting happened, and this meeting, that said that the university is looking at adding a student wellness center, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of like a freestanding uh, center for the four of us. So the health center would have a floor, the wellness center would have a floor, the counseling center would have a floor, and then we would expand our facility. So, because it's the master plan has it going right outside of our facility. So, to take that opportunity, because the university knows that we like I told you, busting at the seams. We have 10,000 square feet of in our facility of cardio and weights with 30,000 students. So right there, we're at a third of where we need to be.
Right.
So anyway, so we get the opportunity. So that's something that they were talking about, was building of going to the state legislature and putting a not a full referendum together, but it was, so currently we have a fee that the students pay, was making an addendum to the fee basically to help support the funding of that facility while also using some other fee structure money for the other three areas, and possibly building um, I think they said roughly 75,000 square feet foot facility that we would, all three of us, four of us would share. Um, I crunched the numbers of what we would want, and we only needed 55,000 square feet. So the other three areas can each fight over the other 30,000 square feet, or actually less than 20,000 square feet, and figure it out. But, we only needed two-thirds of the space. So
You only needed a Richie sized building. That's all.
exactly. I only needed a Ritchie sized building. That's all I needed.
Okay.
So that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that puts it a little more better. Yeah, a little better perspective. So we're kind of waiting to see how that pans out for the summer. Hopefully, the summer, um, uh, probably end of June, July is usually when the session ends, the legislative session ends, and so we usually figure out what's going on then. And then right now, as we speak, I just thought about that. We are put in a outdoor fitness court through National Fitness Campaign. We received a grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we were able to build the actual studio. So a lot of them are single sided with the wall and then the outdoor fitness equipment that are stationary. But we were able to do the studio as well. So we have the part of it is the equipment on one side, and then there's an open floor on the other side where we can host group exercise classes. You can use it for stretching, um, small group training, whatever we needed. So that's actually being constructed right now. And the grand opening is slated for May 4th. So that'll just give us a whole new opportunity for programs and services outside. Yes, we're going to cover it because I'm in Texas. It'll have a cover. We'll have misting fans on everybody because nobody wants to sweat when they work out. No, we won't have misting fans. I'm just joking. But it complements that area because it's right outside our soccer fields. So we have an outdoor basketball, we have like two sand volleyball courts, three outdoor basketball courts, and then now this fitness studio is all outside next to our fields. So it's kind of a nice little outdoor recplex type area
And
unofficially.
what's the proposed programming for that outdoor fitness space?
So the way it works is it's National Fitness Campaign is all over, and they mostly put those studios up in municipalities. But what you can do is it's for drop in, I guess, informal rec mainly. So anybody can go out there. There's a QR code. There's an app on your phone. You can choose from hundreds of workouts that you want to do. So you pick the workout you want to do. It tells you how to go through the circuit on the for the equipment. You can upload your numbers and see how you're doing against other people around the area or in the nation. And then, so that's just the informal side. So students, faculty, staff could just go out there and use it. And then we'll probably program it with HIT classes, personal training. Probably take our clients outside, get them into a different area for personal training classes, and then it'll be a nice space for outdoor, like a group X class. It'll be a really nice space once it's all said and done. So hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of just get people outside and out of the building.
Is it in an enclosed area, like in a fenced in area, or is it all? It's all open.
It's open. It's open. Everything's open. Our courts are open. Our outdoor basketball courts are open. Our sand volleyball courts are open. We do monitor them, especially on the weekends, because we know it's when a lot of non-students are around. So if I joked and said the other day, if I'm out walking around or doing something and I see a random group exercise class going on and I know it's not one of ours, we'll probably have to go over there and say, hey, this isn't for you to use. You have to be part of the UTD community to use it. So, or if you see a lot of all of a sudden, the Camp Gladiator van pulls up and 10 people get out and start using the facility, you got a problem. So we'll see. Maybe some growing pains that we have, but for now it's open. It's not. It's not a. There's nothing. There's no real pieces to worry about. It's all low impact stuff. So
Okay, those are all some things I'm still learning here in Texas. Between the legislative session that meets every other year, which
yep,
I was like, how do you guys get anything done?
we
Um,
don't.
a lot of gun bills get pushed through,
Oh, they
but
get pushed through. Yes.
yeah, but Camp, the whole Camp Gladiator thing, I was just like, for the longest time, I saw the little logo on the back of people's cars. I'm like, what is that? And then I forget where I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, let's see what that is. But there's still a lot of things. And then yes, the shading thing, that's something I have to work on where I'm at right now. We're talking about relocating a playground as part of the master plan, but also safety and security, because the playground that are used by our pre-K students is at the north end of campus, and it's kind of not out in the open per se, but it's more removed from the rest of the buildings. There's a lot of movement of these kids on the campus. From buildings to the half of the gym is used for lunch every day, and then they go outside for recess, and then back to their classrooms and everything. So I get the fun part of this summer of getting a new wood floor installed for the gymnasium.
Ah,
Yeah. So
are you
I've
using
talked.
quality hardwood floors? Who are you using?
The company
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it's a local company called Gelco, and so
Oh, okay.
they're the ones that we got our new side mount basketball goals. That we're gonna get retractable bleachers and solid maple hardwood floors
Okay,
in this
cool.
gym. So
Awesome.
yeah, I've been super busy since I got here. Spending a lot of money. Also, there's a lot of deferred maintenance that was taking place that costing us money in HVAC. Oh, and then I guess the other thing I'm learning too is the nature of tree trimming here in the state of Texas, or just the sovereignty of trees in the state of Texas. Let's put it that way. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
they are a protected class. So yeah, that everything that comes with that. So learning about that. So had some crash courses and all that. So is there any other things like trends wise that you've noticed in recreation that, because I know Jay was always a big fan of not following trends. He wanted to partake in things that had staying power, because again he looked at the investment, and again I guess the whole reason why we were such good stewards with money is investing money in something that's going to last, not just oh, this is trendy, we should do this. And so there's things that you see that have had staying power that you'd want to integrate into the rec program there.
So part of our problem, Sean, is yes, there's lots of stuff I would love to. I mean, I'd love to expand our outdoor excursions program. Like I said, the student government gave us money to do it, but we don't have any storage or anything to put any equipment. So we have some tents, some sleeping bags. Um, we do our battleship, our intramural battleship, where you try to sink each other's canoes. We got to go rent canoes from SMU to host our own event. So, um, you know, I I'd love to be able to expand upon that. As far as like trends, it's crazy. We tried pickleball a few years ago before the pandemic, and it flopped. And now pickleball is everywhere. I don't know if it's necessarily made it with our students, but I know it's made it to this area. I know it's made it to other universities because I've talked to people when I was at NERSA. They had a whole pickleball demonstration. So that is probably something, again, you're going to have to fight for space because pickleball is played on a badminton court, for lack of the same size as a badminton court. So now you got to prioritize who's more important, the pickleball players or the badminton players. And then fitness trends are very, you have to figure out which fitness trends, so if they don't require equipment, no harm no foul to add it. It's when they start requiring equipment like the underwater spin bikes and you could do the spinning underwater, whatever. I don't quite know about that yet, and again, I don't have the space just to keep bikes in the pool or hang bikes over the pool. I don't not the whole storage just blows my mind. Um, so it all just depends, because I think what's a trend to somebody might, or a fad to somebody might be successful at other universities. So I haven't really seen anything too crazy that I was like, oh, that's never going to last. Um, in the last few years since we've come back from the pandemic, specifically, I haven't really seen anything made that was a head scratcher.
Yeah. Every time the subject of the underwater bikes or treadmills came up at Maryland, I was like, no, No,
I just don't
not.
know how you'd have space for them or where. I mean, I know you could. Don't get me wrong, but you're gonna. Yeah. I don't want to talk bad about anybody's program or services.
Well,
So
I
they're
looked at.
to
I mean,
each their own. To each their own. Hey, it works for some people. You
well,
have at it.
I said if you're going to consider this, you're going to have to reconsider the structures of the pool. We're going to have to get rid of all this tile because you got to get those bikes in and out of the water because you can't leave them in it. There's not enough water space,
Right. Yeah.
especially with the Learn to Swim program they had at Maryland. You know, you
Let us learn to drown.
my kids did okay in it. Um, I survived. Carrie taught me how to swim,
That's true. She did.
yeah. I mean, I'm okay. I can hold my own, but they're inevitably they were going to have to come out of the pool, so that means in and out, and
Yeah.
so having to think about again the people that were going to be asked to take them in and out of the pool and set them up, and again from a safety perspective, it's just like I don't think it's worth the liability, and I don't think we have the infrastructure in terms of all this tile in the pool, like and how much we do retiling every year because tile is getting
Oh, I
broken.
know. Yeah.
Like after they hosted that, what was that big swim league event that with the
USA Swimming or Y Nationals?
no the one with the pro swimmers, like the big one where they come in and like completely like they did it. They
Fina,
hosted.
Fina.
No, it was like on it was on primetime TV and everything like
I
that.
know.
And
Yeah.
uh,
Moses Malone was there, and
yeah, so they had it at Maryland, and they come in and
yeah,
they broke so many
I
tiles
thought
on
it
the
was
deck.
FIFA. I thought it was FIFA swimming.
Maybe, but
I said Fina. I think I meant FIFA swimming. Yeah.
yeah, but it was yeah. So it was that big, whatever it was. But they broke so many tiles with all the rigging they had to put up for the lights and
Hmm.
the staging they had to put, like the floating stage they put in the pool because of the entrance to hide our instructional pool and everything. It was just
Yep.
like, are they going to pay for this? Like, because it's, I mean, it was a lot. I was like,
Yep.
this is probably a good time to consider we should really replace these tiles. Not to mention we're running out of attic stock of these tiles, so we're not going to get these colors anymore. So
Exactly.
I think it's time to look at something else, but it's one of those things. Storage is always an issue. I have the same problem where I'm at now. That's what I
Storage is
felt.
always everybody. Anytime you build a building, you build extra storage, and you still never have enough. You could build a building just for storage, and you still won't have enough.
We did that at Maryland. That was one of the last projects I was part of before I left. Is the big storage building out at the artificial turf.
Hmm.
An actual metal building got put up, and we tore down the actual shed because the shed was
Mm.
the shed was
Yeah.
falling apart.
Yeah.
Had holes in the roof, holes in the siding, and so it got ripped down. But we got a metal building. But then again, too, it was like splitting it in half, so half for grounds, and then that other half was subdivided between intramurals and clubs
Yep.
because clubs had started building stockpiling all these job boxes out there to store all of their gear,
Hmm.
and so like it's just looking messy. And then when they redid it, they took in some of the fencing down and for goal storage after the last time they redid the turf and everything. So yeah, it's always about, and jokingly at all these conferences you go to, you talk to architects, is like you got to figure out be more creative ways for storage. You guys don't build enough storage in these buildings. You got to stop value engineering out storage because
Exactly.
people want all this other stuff. I was like, the storage needs to stay.
Yeah. Value engineering storage. Okay. Well, then cut your costs,
So
cut your architecture fees.
right, I mean, and that was an interesting conversation too. That at because I went to athletic business in Florida last year. And I was talking to one of the architects that I have talked to a couple different times, been to different presentations they've given. It's Gavin DeBecker, and him talking about like with COVID and like supply chain issues, when like trying to get common things like concrete that they specified for builds, having to source other brands of concrete because what they normally got it was not available. And
Hmm.
so getting a builder that like, we want to use this concrete, and then like the architect's like, well, we need the specs on it, we need the testing, the making sure it's strong enough and everything. Is just like, well, it's kind of such a new product, they really don't have all that information. I'm like, I'm not sure we're going to want to use this in the application because it's not what we've used, and then warranty concerns and things like that. So it's interesting.
Hmm. Okay.
So thank you for your time today. It It was good catching up with
You're
you.
welcome, sweetie. You haven't changed a bit.
I've gotten a little softer.
Oh,
Kids will do that to you. Um,
I've gotten a little softer too, if you can believe it. No.
so, but it was great. Thank you for the time. It was great having you on here. I'll have to make my way up to visit you again. It's only a 3.5 hour drive. That's not really far of a drive. So,
Yeah, I'd love to see you. Come up and do something. Come up. I mean, Austin has everything, so it's not like I can say, "Hey, come to the zoo." I mean, you got a zoo. It's not like, "Hey,
uh,
Six Flags, maybe come up for Six Flags."
I think the zoo probably in Dallas, and then the aquarium, because the aquarium here in Austin is in a strip mall, and so it's not an aquarium. So
Oh,
I
okay.
have a very high standard for an aquarium going from Baltimore with the National
Oh,
Aquarium.
yeah, you do. Yeah, yeah.
There's a very high standard of very high threshold to meet for an aquarium, what people call an aquarium down here. So I was like, yeah, this is not an aquarium.
That's a fish tank.
It was like a glorified fish store. That's what I felt like. Because
Yeah,
again, we went to is like the Austin Aquarium. It's in a strip mall next to like a
yeah.
Kobe like hibachi steak place, and I was just like, I mean, it was good. I mean, for what it was, for the value, it was
Like the
good.
Rainforest Cafe, but maybe,
A
a little
little more,
more uppity than the Rainforest Cafe.
yeah, a little more interactive, less food. Yeah. So it
Yeah,
was, yeah. Everything cost everything. Like you could sit with a sloth, but like everything, every little thing cost. You had to pay. It wasn't included in the price of the ticket. You had to pay separately for all these different activities, like feeding birds out of your hand and stuff. That was all separate fees. So,
Mhm.
but yeah. But again,
Okay.
it was great. It was great catching up with you. Thank you for the time.
You're very welcome. Have a great day, sweetie, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.